Welcome, Trailblazers. In this episode, we're talking about the number one way to get your clients and customers to spend more money with you with Kaci Brown. So stick around. If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer Podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now, let's get to it with today's guest. Welcome, Kaci. We're super excited to have you with us today. Why don't you go ahead and give a little more context to who you are, and then we're going to dive deep into this strategy. How do we actually get people to actually spend more money with us?
Awesome. Well, it's incredible to be here. So thank you first and foremost. And for everyone listening, it is an honor and a privilege to share. Essentially, I feel like my whole life, I have sort of had this internal crusade to serve better, to actually follow through on the promises that were created. Because honestly, in business, no matter what niche or market you're in, it's unfortunately a very low bar to actually fulfill on what you've promised and you have sold to your client or your customer. And I grew up in a really small family business. And that is what put food on the table, is the returning customers, the way that we served, the way that we understood, the way that we listened. And so literally from 9 years old, I would come home. There was office desks in our foyer, and I learned how to answer phones and listen to people. Like, that's just kind of the generation that we grew up in. And I've carried it forward in every business that I've ever had. My business now is Amplify My Impact, and it's just really rooted in how much more impact can we create when we leverage trust, when we follow up on our promises, and we really create a brand that stands for something, that creates quality experiences in how we sell and the way that we operate, both personally and it extends in business. So that's what I'm excited to share.
Awesome. I love it. So I think this is a really good topic to cover. You hear this term trust recession. We're sort of in this weird space where there's been all kinds of hype and there's all kinds of crazy that's been going around for so long. And I feel like the pendulum is starting to swing. So before we talk about how to do this, give us some stats, because I know that you've got this down. Like, if we actually do what you're teaching and actually work to build amazing trust, how can this impact our business?
Yeah. So it's interesting that you say that, because it is like a pendulum swing and you're seeing it in the market. And I feel so vindicated because years ago, I questioned, like, do I belong in this online marketing space? Because everything is so quick and shiny and sort of look at me. And there's a lot of people on pedestals, right? When the quiet, consistent brand, like heart-centered, service-centered brand, is the one that truly has the staying power. And when I share these stats, all of that will make sense. Because when you do honestly sell and serve someone and you fulfill on what you sold, 93% of those clients and customers are happy. They become brand evangelists and they recommend your products and services to others. And when you compare that to all of the other forms of traffic, social media, Facebook ads, before all of this on social, you had magazines and billboards. And you look at that, if you're not treating your customers like this, you're missing out on such a huge part of the market that actually will go and do the selling for you. And it's not hard to serve them and listen to them and then really just rise above the rest of the market. 83% will also give new products a chance. So when you're looking to pivot or putting a new offer out there or doing some customer research, they're excited to participate. They want to give their feedback and they want to try the things that you put out because you've created that trust. They want to lean into the innovation and you're committed to serving beyond just a quick flash sale on what's popular right now, and then you're out because you've burned your audience. Like churn and burn audience, like we've all seen it, and we know what the products are and we know what the offers are. You can look to the industry and you can see 3 years ago, everybody was on top. Who are they? Where are they now? Right? Because they abused their audience. They didn't fulfill on what they sold. 80% are more loyal to that brand, right? And you can see this in large brands play out all of the time. Why do people line up overnight for every Apple release product? Because they're a fan. They're like a dedicated, diehard fan. And at every level in business, we have loyal brand fans. And if we respect them, they will stay with us. 80% of a sticking rate is what everybody is going for in any type of business. And then here's the one that usually gets everyone to pay attention, is that people who trust your brand and have that relationship with you, 46% are willing to pay a higher price. That's pretty nice. And if you think about that, we act like that in the way that we shop for our home or the way that we invest in a car. Like there's this brand that we trust. And even though we know it's a little bit more expensive, it's not worth the hassle of doubt or being disappointed. Like we know what we're investing in and we know we're paying a premium for it, and we'll still choose it anyway. And that's the type of business that I like to create. And that's what I like to create for my clients.
The other reason this is really important is because when people think about growing their business, most of the time they're focused on just reaching new people and making more sales with more people. And I think what they don't realize is that that's actually the number one, the most difficult way, and also the most expensive way. And also the most time-consuming way to grow a business is by trying to get more customers and clients in. The more you scale up your ad spend, the more expensive, the more you have to pay per lead. The more customers you bring in, the more customer service you have to do. And that's one of the things when I think back to when we were doing like really high volume, low ticket course sales. That's one of the things that really made business difficult for us when we hit like our first 6-figure month, was all the customer service we had to do, because we were still working as solopreneurs. We didn't have anybody helping us. We didn't know what to expect when we hit that. We just expect, okay, you make sales, you're living the laptop lifestyle on the beach. Well, no. You're stuck at home answering emails, helping people log into their account, fixing their email address because they typed it in wrong. And you're doing that 100 times a day. Trying to grow your business by just bringing in more customers is so much harder than getting people to pay more or getting your existing customers to spend more with you, to buy more things from you. Those are really the most efficient and easiest ways to scale your business. So what are the key components of this? Because I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, well, okay, so build trust. What are really the practical steps to do that?
Oh gosh, yes. So I love this. And the thing is, I'll give you a book reference too, because I'm sure you guys like having things. How it's Never Lose a Customer. I believe it's Joey Coleman. It's essentially knowing your customers better than anyone else in the market, I think, is where you start, whether it's the existing customers or it's the customers that you're going after that are sort of like your new cold leads. And if you understand your customers better than anyone in the market, especially in this economy, you know that it comes with a little bit of reservations. Like we talk about objection handling all of the time. Most of the market has been burned, or they've spent money on something and it's a low quality product and they didn't get what they pay for. So first and foremost, it's understanding that dynamic and honoring that relationship and the commitment of honoring that relationship. So much so that if for some reason you have that intention and something goes wrong, come hell or high water, you're going to figure out a way to make it right. And that sticks with your company brand reputation. And when we start from that operating perspective, then our current client base, we start listening and we start seeing where they have bottlenecks, where they get stuck. And we are truly committed to improving our product or service and having that communication dynamic where that even if they do get stuck and they get frustrated and they're like, hey, Cassie, I bought this from you and it's really hard, or I'm not happy. Just by me listening and having a feedback loop or customer service way, like with AI now and with stateside or international team members, I think the way that you structure your customer service. So like when we look at that, it's obviously having huge intention of no matter what, putting the systems in place and the mechanisms for the feedback loop with the intention of taking action on the feedback that you get from your customers to innovate. And then when you get to that innovation phase, that's when attracting new customers, your old customers and current customers are going to supply that social proof when you're running ads to cold, the testimonials, the case studies, the results that we all want. That will literally complete that whole sales cycle loop for you if you first and foremost create that intention of serving and fulfilling, but also innovating, like listening to the problems that people are having. The way that we solved problems, especially with today in AI, someone who created a course even 2 years ago, they're doing a disservice to their audience if they're not consistently updating it with any changes in the market or innovating it with new technologies to help their customers and clients get results faster.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I know for a lot of the people that we talk to that are creating online courses, sometimes the expectation they have is that they're going to create this course and they're just going to put it out there and they're going to make sales and they're not going to have to deal with any customer service or deal with, managing clients or whatever, right? But what people often don't understand is that, especially if it's the first time you're selling the course and nobody's gone through it yet, you need to go through that QA process. You need to get that feedback. Maybe there's something that people aren't understanding. Maybe there's a question that everybody's having when they get to a certain point. You need to be able to identify that and be able to improve upon that in order to keep that course current, in order for people to get results, in order to get the testimonials, and the testimonials are going to help them make more sales and raise the price and all that other stuff. One of the things that I know that we've always liked to do with any of our courses is we always have a Facebook group to go along with it that people can join, that they can ask questions in. And then it's easy for us to just look at the alerts that are coming in on a daily basis and just answer the quick questions. And for us, that was just the easy way to do it. Are there other ways to do this, or how can you create a system that's easy for people to manage where they can get this feedback that they need?
Yeah, I love that question because I see it a lot. I think a lot of people think there's sort of this like one way to do things where there's a specific playbook that is the success blueprint, when it really just depends on what mechanism of communications your customers and clients are already used to engaging in. So you look at a lot of tech companies, there was this bubble sort of where it's like these 800 support numbers like started closing down and we moved to chat. And so there's an asynchronous type where there's chat. AI is a chat mechanism now where you can essentially have trained bots on all of your course material with frequently asked questions that automatically and instantly get them a question. And so I would say first evaluate your type of communication style. I love social and I love Facebook groups as well. And I just like the stickiness of a community where people feel like they can come in at any point in time. They can ask a question. And obviously, it's not going to be instantaneous all the time. It might be the next day or something like that. But a chat bot could be instant. So I think it really depends on the personality types that you are serving and how they've been communicated with before. At the end of the day, we're wired for habits. So if they're wired for email support and they're used to, a 24-hour turnaround, then there's mechanisms that you can put into place for email. Same thing with chat and the Facebook group with notifications and automatic things. There's even, Telegram groups. There's a lot of apps that focus on, and I think really with AI and with vibe coding, you're going to see a lot more personalization, like even Discord. Like I can't navigate a Discord server to save my life. It takes a lot of effort for me to figure out which channel to go in. But there's other people who will just ask straight out, can this be a Discord community? Others even do it in Slack channels, organized Slack channels. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's a lot of tools and automations in tech. And so my best advice is the least path of resistance because you don't want to create a barrier for that feedback loop and communication. The faster you can get the client engaged, the quicker they're going to stay engaged. So I would incorporate that into your onboarding and literally introduce an action right after they buy. So these are other kind of little things that I've always done with my communities. It's literally like right after they make the purchase, before buyer's remorse even happens, keep them in that like dopamine rush and feeling accomplished that they've made a decision. Now we're going to tell them how we communicate and what to do next. And it could be a video, simple video on the thank you page that says, hey, go check your email. You're going to get access to this. And then you introduce yourself in our Facebook community. And we have, this Q&A chat and Discord. It's whatever path you choose, make it clear as possible for them to engage right away.
I'm glad you mentioned that buyer's remorse, because that does happen. Like you said, if you don't engage people right away, we've seen this happen where people have a really high refund rate or even just a really high chargeback rate on their courses. And I think that's probably part of it, is that they're just not engaging people. There's a lot of that buyer's remorse, or even they're just not delivering on what they promised. And maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, whatever it is, people figure out that, this isn't what I was promised. And rather than ask for a refund, they just do a chargeback. So I think this whole discussion is just really important, just for that part alone of reducing refunds, reducing chargebacks. Now, as far as providing the support, getting the engagement, I know that what we've done in the past is, if we're launching something for the first time, we often have a higher level of touch to give that support and to get that feedback. So for example, like we'll do a month or maybe even up to 3 months of weekly Q&A where people can go through the course, and maybe it's at their own pace, or maybe it's a drip release course or whatever it is, but we're doing weekly Q&As where they can jump on, they can ask questions. We can maybe do a little bit more training and kind of just provide the immediate feedback that way. And then that would help us to make the refinements that we need in the course. And then maybe we'll at some point remove that, and then we'll just kind of scale back to just a Facebook group. And then at some point, maybe we feel we don't even need a Facebook group. Is it okay to do it that way? Or is there always kind of like a baseline that you feel that you always need? Like, should you always have some sort of a person available to answer questions personally? Or could you at some point go to just email support or just an AI support?
That's a really interesting question. And I want to share another stat with you, because we're talking about essentially two things: keeping customers longer, if it's some sort of continuity program, or you want them to renew and ascend to a different. So for me, I do think a continuous touch point is really, really important if you want to see that. Now, if it's an evolution of the way that you are serving and you've tried a couple of things, because there's been even programs that I've done or worked on the back end of, and they've created these mechanisms and these chats or these Zoom calls, and no one's showing up and so for me, that is a valuable feedback loop, because there's a couple things happening. Either, you haven't created the momentum of habit for people to realize this is available and they use it, and you haven't, done it consistently long enough. Or let's say you have checked that box and it has been consistently done long enough, but they're not seeing that as a value. And it could just be the mechanism type, and you need to change the medium, because it's 5 to 25x more expensive to acquire a new customer than to keep the ones that you have happy. And so when we put those into the numbers, and it does become important for us to identify what mechanism needs to be in place and how it consistently will support the customers staying engaged, getting the results that they need, getting their questions answered, staying longer. Because when they stay longer, they, again, do the selling for you. Because let's say you are in a launch cycle, or even if you're in an evergreen, I've seen a lot of success in evergreen plus live. So if there's an evergreen and then maybe there's a live Q&A session where the leader comes in or the program coaches come in, and then they'll have a panel of customers who have been in the program. And this could be a 6-week program. This could be a 6-month program. But what those clients say will be so much stronger than any VSL or webinar that you or I could personally do. So it's finding what that mechanism is. If it's not working, it is perfectly fine to pivot, but I would 100% encourage you to find a continuous touch point that is working. Because if you are going to be a long-term sustainable company, you're going to need a customer support mechanism in some way, shape, or form. It just needs to be one that's a win for you as a company and a win for the consumer as well.
Absolutely. I love this. So for those who maybe haven't prioritized even just the feedback with their offers and what they're doing, what would be a good first step? Or should they, start putting together surveys to send to their clients? Like, how do they start this journey?
Yeah. I am a huge proponent of conversations. Sometimes I think, depending on what type of communicator you are, if one, it makes you squirm, I don't know that surveys would be the best, because sometimes surveys aren't necessarily an open-ended question. They might be great if you already have a baseline of information to compare it to. And I have always learned if I don't have a baseline of information, then I need to get on the phone. I need to interview my best customers and clients. I need to be vulnerable with them. I need to not only ask them what do they love, but how can I be better? How can this be better? How can we communicate the opportunity that we have so that someone else like them that's on the fence, that had some hesitations, what can I say to serve? And it is one of those things where it's like, when you do start collecting that data, it's very intimidating, because no one wants for anyone to call their baby ugly. Like, no one wants for a complaint. And it's almost like, it's just like what Todd asked earlier, people will purchase and they'll send an email, and then it's almost like you don't want to say anything else, because if I don't say anything else, they won't remember they bought it, and then they won't do a chargeback. Like, with all of my being, I want to encourage people to show up more for the people who bought your products, because they bought it for a reason. You intersected them at a point in time where the problem was so relevant with your message, and they saw an opportunity for a solution. So now in integrity, we need to make sure that they follow up on their decision, and sort of like, we are that integrity and partner for accountability for them. And so we figure out ways like to remind them an email, to send them a voicemail, to send them an SMS text, to engage them in a community. But it's just one of those things where these mechanisms are so important, and it really does make all of the difference in the world.
So going back to the idea of offering some sort of a live support, like, live Q&A or Facebook group or something like that, after a certain point, like after you kind of get the data that you're looking for, would it make sense to maybe start charging a monthly fee for that if they want to keep having access to the live support? Or is that something that you would say either just cut off or offer for free? Or what are your options there?
Oh my gosh, I love this question too, because I think definitely the way that we started out with, the trust recession and what we're building. A lot of people are used to sort of these go at your own pace type of courses, or they might buy a training, but it comes down to habits and accountability. And I love the idea. I love the model that does have continuity, because when you look at a business, you want both the sales cycle of a purchase, especially if it's a digital product, because I can't say enough, like, if you can remove yourself from the physical delivery of a product and actually start to scale using technology and AI and other mechanisms to have your IP in a training vault or members area. But when you add in the continued support to combat where people fall off, or they get stuck, or they don't move forward, then you do create sort of that additional revenue stream in your company, that now you're not starting from zero every single time. Now you're not trying to cover your whole company expenses, and you're riding it on, completely depending on what Facebook traffic does this month, which can be really scary. We've had friends just a couple weeks ago that have huge Facebook presence, and their group was shut down, or their ad account gets shut down. So I love the continuity, because when you look at the numbers of ascension. On cold traffic, you might have 50% that opt into a free offer. Then of those, maybe 20 to 30% will buy whatever the bumps or the OTOs are. And then there's a smaller percentage yet that could go into the back end, and we're usually looking like at a 5% conversion benchmark there. But then what happens after that? That's where the continuity comes in and the continued support comes in, whether it is a higher ticket and an exclusive mastermind or it's a lower ticket community. If someone's business is growing and they've already experienced success with you, then it does make sense to have a continuity support or accountability offer to go along with that, because they will have a next phase. Like in business and in personal development, there is that gap of opportunity. With every gain that we get, there's another expanded vision that creates the next gap that we're stepping into, and we're trying to solve that problem. I want to solve the problem that are with my ride or dies, like that. I know them, they know me, they know and understand my business, they understand me personally, they know how I tick, they know like what my family goals are. I am much more likely to go into a continuity program because of the environment that's been positive. And when you look at that, it aligns perfectly with what we were talking about in creating trust and lifetime value of a customer.
Absolutely. I love this. Any last thoughts that you have for our audience today?
Any last thoughts that I have? I think it's one of those things we're going to see more and more, that you do have to show your track record of how you've created trust, of how you've served, and how you're innovating. I think a lot of people are intimidated in the AI that's coming out, and they're trying to their place. And honestly, it can be leveraged as an opportunity to refresh and innovate any type of offer. Think about the traditional course structure. You created a course, you create a checklist to go along with the lesson, a workbook to go along with the lesson. I think the easiest thing that you can do now to continue to create that lifetime value of a customer, to expand those continuity, is to take all of that and put it in an AI agent or an AI bot. And you have just created an incredibly valuable resource that people will continue to want access to, that you can create a digital product or even micro SaaS out of. And I don't think a lot of people really understand it is truly that simple. They do not have to be an AI expert. This comes in the forms of chat GPTs, like the private GPTs. There's wrapper tools where you can white label your own bots. There's Claude projects so you can make private and share. There is just so much potential that I don't want anyone to count AI out as a way to continue to expand and serve their clients at a higher level, but also expand their digital offers.
I love that. We got some of those side projects ourselves working on. It's a great way to serve folks and to just help them to have that ongoing support and help them to get better and better results. So this has been a great conversation. We so appreciate you coming on with us today. If people want to check you out, where should they head?
I hang out quite a bit on Facebook, and I think that would be Kaci Brown HQ is the handle. And then, of course, Amplify My Impact is my podcast. So I'm super excited for that. And the community will be launching soon.
Awesome. Well, we'll have the links in the show notes and description. Do you have a freebie you'd like to give away today?
I actually do have something that I'm working on. It's an aligned marketing plan, and I am actually vibe coding it. So it's very fun. It was a way that I forced myself to take my own advice. So I will share that with you guys, and we can put the link in the show notes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.